What if I told you that money doesn't chase people who work the hardest? It chases those who think the clearest. You see, money follows clarity, wealth responds to precision, and the people who consistently rise above the crowd aren't always the most educated, the most connected, or even the most talented. They're the ones who speak with direction, who move with intention, and who build their financial life like an architect, not a gambler. This is the part they never taught you in school, that your income will rarely exceed your self-concept. If deep down you don't believe you deserve more, you'll always find a way to lose it. And worse, you'll talk yourself out of the very opportunities meant to set you free. That's why today isn't just another lesson in money. It's a recalibration of how you think, speak, and act in the presence of wealth. Because the way you speak to yourself, and about the world is the blueprint of your financial life. You've been told that your habits shape your future. That's true. But your language is what shapes your habits. Change your words, and you change your direction. Change your direction, and you change your destiny. So before we dive in, ask yourself one thing. Are you ready to stop surviving and start designing? Because what you're about to hear isn't hype. It's the hard truth behind the psychology of money and the emotional reprogramming the wealthy have mastered. And if you apply what follows, you won't just think richer. Words are not just communication, they're creation. And if you listen closely to the way the wealthy speak, you'll notice something radically different. They don't just describe what is, they declare what will be. Where most people say, I'm trying to get by, the wealthy say, I'm building something scalable. Where most say, I don't know if I can, they say, I'm learning how to. It's not semantics, it's strategy. Because language is a mirror, it reflects what you believe is possible. And it's also a steering wheel. It directs where you're headed. Most people unknowingly use language that keeps them stuck in place. They speak like victims of their environment rather than creators of their destiny. They say things like, I can't afford that. That's just how it is. People like me don't get rich. But here's the truth. Those aren't facts, they're affirmations. You're affirming your own limitations every time you speak them into existence. And the mind? It obeys your words like a soldier taking orders. If you keep telling yourself, I'm just bad with money, your subconscious won't fight you. It will prove you right. This is the tragedy of most financial lives. They're not destroyed by numbers. They're destroyed by narratives. Your story about money, your beliefs about what's possible for you, your identity, all of it is wrapped in the way you speak. And the most dangerous part? You don't even realize you're doing it. You've been conditioned, handed a script, and you're still reading lines from a play you didn't write, but you keep acting it out anyway. That's why you've got to start listening to yourself with ruthless honesty. Catch the moment you say, I'm not the type of person who... Stop. Ask. Says who? Because the wealthy, they rewrite that script. Every day. Deliberately. They understand that language builds identity, and identity is the root of behavior. It's not enough to try to act like someone who's wealthy. You have to speak like someone who expects it. Let me give you a practical shift. Instead of saying, I can't afford it, ask, how can I afford it? That tiny change takes you from a mental dead end to a path of possibility. I can't afford it is a full stop. How can I afford it is an open door. Another one. Replace I'm stuck with I'm learning. Replace I always mess this up with I'm still mastering this. You're not just changing your words, you're changing your frame, and your frame shapes your focus, and your focus dictates your future. You see, wealthy people don't just invest in assets, they invest in language, because they know words are wealth multipliers. Every thought becomes a sentence. Every sentence becomes a belief. Every belief becomes a habit. And every habit becomes a result. So if you want different results, trace them back to the root. What have you been saying to yourself on repeat for years? Maybe it started as a throwaway phrase. I'm just not that good with business. I could never be an entrepreneur. Money always stresses me out. But those phrases became your self-concept, and your self-concept became your ceiling. Let's flip that. Start treating your inner dialogue like a sacred space, because it is. Your mind is soil, your words are seeds. Are you planting weeds or wealth? Let your language become a filter. If a phrase doesn't align with who you want to become, you don't say it, not even as a joke, not even sarcastically, because your subconscious doesn't understand sarcasm. It only understands repetition. So speak like a builder. Speak like someone who expects expansion, who assumes they'll figure it out, who knows they're not limited by their past, only by the beliefs they refuse to challenge. This is how the wealthy separate themselves long before the bank account shows it. They stop using language as a reaction and start using it as a blueprint. They speak life into their plans. They speak discipline into their days. They speak alignment into their decisions. And because of that, they move differently. They see opportunity where others see obstacles. Why? Because they've trained themselves to talk possibility, not limitation. So if you want to join them, don't start with money. Start with the mirror. Start with your mouth. Start with the next sentence you say after this video ends. Let it sound like someone who expects to win, not because of ego, but because of identity. You're not speaking to impress. You're speaking to evolve. And if you do this consistently, you won't have to chase wealth. It will recognize your voice and come find you. Excuses feel safe. They feel logical, convenient, comfortable even. They wrap themselves in reason and sound like truth, but underneath, they're costing you everything. Not just your money, but your potential, your power, your progress. Let me say this plainly. Excuses are the most expensive habit you've ever developed. They bankrupt you faster than a bad investment. They shrink your identity. They train your brain to negotiate with your dreams and lose. Think about it. Every time you say, I would, but, you're handing your power to something outside of you. I would start the business, but the economy is bad. I would invest, but I don't have the time. I would get out of debt, but my paycheck isn't enough. You see it? Every excuse pushes your goal out of reach and places the blame somewhere else. It's always something or someone. But here's the wake-up call. As long as it's someone else's fault, it will never be your solution. Let that sink in. Because the day your life begins to shift is the day you stop outsourcing responsibility. Let me tell you a story. Years ago, I got invited to speak at a conference. It was a big deal. Exposure, networking, momentum. But I didn't have the money to travel. I almost said, I can't afford it. Almost. But something inside me, something tired of feeling stuck, stopped me. Instead of saying, I can't, I asked, how can I? That one question changed everything. I picked up a side gig, sold off things I didn't need, made the trip. That one event opened 5 more doors. If I had stuck with the excuse, none of it would have happened. But I didn't accept the limitation. I traded it for initiative. An initiative always outperforms circumstance. You've got to stop speaking in limits and start thinking in leverage. Because the moment you speak an excuse, your mind stops looking for options. But the moment you speak a solution, even before you know the how, your brain gets to work. You shift from victim to visionary. Excuses are the vocabulary of stagnation. Ownership is the dialect of the wealthy. Listen to how high performers talk. I didn't manage my time well. I didn't prepare. I didn't follow through. You might think that sounds like self-blame. It's not. It's power. Because when you say, "It's on me," you take the wheel back. You're no longer a passenger in your own life. You're the driver. And drivers decide the destination. Here's the truth. Most people aren't stuck because of where they are. They're stuck because they refuse to own how they got there. But until you own the cause, you'll never own the cure. That means cutting the language of blame. No more pointing at parents, teachers, bosses, markets, systems. Yes, those things shape us, but they do not define us. You are not a product of your past. You are a product of what you do next. And what you do next is shaped by what you say next. So let's rewrite the language. I'm too tired. I need to manage my energy better. I don't have time. I haven't prioritized it yet. I can't do it. I haven't learned it yet. See the difference? One keeps you small. The other keeps you growing. Every time you catch yourself making an excuse, pause. Replace it. Not with guilt, not with shame, but with clarity. Because clarity is the soil where progress grows. Look, you don't need to be perfect, but you do need to be honest. Honest about the stories you've been telling yourself. Honest about the fact that maybe, just maybe, you've been the one holding yourself back. That's not an insult. That's empowerment. Because if it's you, then you can change it. And you don't need to do it all at once. Start with the next sentence that comes out of your mouth. Catch the excuse. Replace it with ownership. Watch how fast your life starts to shift. Because here's the truth the wealthy already know. The fastest way to change your reality is to change your responsibility. The moment you stop making excuses is the moment you start making progress. That's when doors start opening. That's when solutions start showing up. That's when you stop waiting for permission and start building momentum. And make no mistake, momentum favors ownership. Excuses may give you relief, but ownership gives you results. So the next time you're tempted to explain why you can't, ask yourself, what if I stopped arguing for my limits long enough to find out what's possible? Because the only thing standing between you and your next level might just be a sentence you keep repeating. And the good news, you can change that sentence right now. Most people think they have a money problem, but if you dig a little deeper, you'll find that what they really have is an attention problem. They don't know where their money is going. They don't know what it's doing. And because of that, they can't control it. Because you can't manage what you don't measure. Let me be blunt. If you're not tracking your money, you're bleeding it. Not in huge, obvious ways, but in quiet, invisible leaks. The coffee that turns into a habit. The subscription you forgot about. The dinner that you rationalized with, "I deserve this." And it adds up. Drip by drip, dollar by dollar, until you look at your account and think, where did it all go? But here's the truth the wealthy know. Every dollar has a job. And if you don't give it one, it will disappear. Let me tell you a moment that changed everything for me. I was working hard, hustling, staying busy, but somehow I was always broke. I didn't understand it. I was putting in the effort. So why wasn't it working? Then a mentor looked me in the eye and said something I'll never forget. "Do you know where your money's going?" I said, "Sort of." He smiled, then dropped the hammer. "Sort of is why you're sort of broke." That was the day I started tracking. Not when I got rich. Not when I had 6 figures. I started with what I had, even if it wasn't much. A notebook, a pen, brutal honesty. I wrote down every dollar I earned, every expense, every indulgence, every leak. And at first it was humbling. It hurt to see how much I was wasting. But pain is a powerful teacher, And awareness is the beginning of freedom. That's when everything changed. Because when you track, you notice. You see the $7 coffee every morning and realize it's $210 a month. You see the fast food, the impulse buys, the dopamine purchases, and you can't unsee them. You start realizing, I've been spending like someone who doesn't plan to be wealthy. And that's the shift. You stop seeing tracking as punishment and start seeing it as power. Because tracking your money is not about restriction. It's about direction. You become the boss of your income, not its employee. You look at your dollars and say, this one goes to savings. That one goes to investing. This one pays down debt. That one builds the future. Every dollar becomes a soldier. Every expense becomes a strategy. And suddenly, you're not reacting anymore. You're building. You don't need a finance degree to do this. You don't need an accountant. You don't need a fancy app. You just need the willingness to look at the truth. Because the truth will either hurt or it will set you free. The wealthy know this. That's why they obsess over numbers. Not because they're greedy, but because they're intentional. They know that awareness is profit. That clarity creates progress. That what you track, you can improve. The poor guess, the wealthy calculate, and that difference shows up in the results. So let me challenge you. Right now, open a spreadsheet. Start a note in your phone. Get a notebook and write 3 columns. Income. What's coming in? Expenses. What's going out? Movement. What's being saved, invested, or wasted? Do it daily, weekly, monthly. It doesn't matter. Just do it consistently. Because if you track what you earn and what you spend, you'll start to see patterns. And patterns reveal truth. You'll see where money is leaking, where fear is driving decisions, where you're still buying like a consumer instead of building like an investor. And then you adjust. You cut what doesn't serve. You amplify what does. You start steering your ship instead of drifting. And here's the beautiful part. The discipline of tracking builds confidence. You no longer live in denial. You live in design. You're not wondering if you can afford something. You know. You're not hoping it works out. You're guiding it there. Tracking transforms chaos into clarity, confusion into control, and that control compounds, because the more you measure, the more intentional you become. The more intentional you become, the more momentum you build. And the more momentum you build, the faster wealth follows. So if you've been afraid to look at the numbers, look anyway, because ignoring your finances doesn't make you free. It makes you blind. And no one builds a future in the dark. So shine the light. Track every dollar. Treat your money like it matters. Because the moment you start paying attention, your money will start paying you back. Debt isn't just a number. It's a weight. It lives in the background of your thoughts, whispers in your quiet moments, and turns ambition into anxiety. It changes how you walk into a room. It changes how you see opportunity. It even changes how you see yourself, because when you're buried in debt, every decision feels like defense. You're not moving toward wealth. You're running from lack. And that feeling, that constant mental drag, it's exhausting. But here's the truth. Debt is not a life sentence. It's not who you are. It's not your destiny. It's not permanent unless you surrender to it. What it is a challenge. And like any challenge, there's a way through. Let me show you the way. It's called the snowball method. And it's not just effective, it's emotionally powerful. Here's how it works. You list every debt you have, smallest to largest by balance, not by interest rate. Forget the logic for now. We're working with momentum. You make minimum payments on everything, except the smallest one. That one? You attack it like a warrior. Every extra dollar you find, side gigs, cancelled subscriptions, cut expenses. All of it goes to that smallest debt. And when it's gone, you take the amount you were paying toward it and roll it into the next smallest debt, and then the next, and then the next. Like a snowball rolling downhill. Small at first, but gaining mass, speed, and power with every turn. That's where the magic happens. You start to feel something you haven't felt in a long time. Progress. And that progress builds belief, and belief builds momentum. See, the problem with traditional logic, pay off the highest interest first, is that it ignores the psychology. It ignores the fact that when you're drowning in debt, what you need most is a win, a sense of victory, a reason to believe you can keep going. That's what the snowball method gives you. Quick wins, visible traction, emotional momentum. Let me give you a real example. A young man came to one of my seminars years ago. He was buried in debt, credit cards, student loans, personal loans. He felt stuck, ashamed, paralyzed. We walked him through the snowball strategy. He listed his debts, picked the smallest. A $300 store card. First month, paid it off. It lit a fire in him. That single win changed everything. He kept going, cutting expenses, picking up extra income, rolling payments forward. 12 months later, he had paid off $11,000 in total. Not because he made more money, because he made a better plan. You see, the wealthy don't fear debt because they're lucky. They fear it because they know what it costs. Not just financially, but mentally. Debt is a tax on your focus. It steals your energy. It forces you to pay for the past instead of building the future. But here's the beautiful truth. You can break free. One decision. $1. One debt at a time. Let's make it practical. Take 30 minutes. List every debt you owe. Ignore the shame. You're not writing down your identity. You're writing down your battle plan. Put them in order from smallest to largest by balance. Then, find one small win. It might be a $200 credit card, a $90 utility bill in collections. Anything. Attack that first one with everything you've got. Sell something. Skip the takeout. Deliver food. Cancel a subscription. Whatever it takes. And when that first balance hits zero, celebrate it. Because that moment isn't just financial, it's psychological. It proves something. It proves that you're not powerless. You're not doomed. You're not stuck. You're in motion. And motion changes everything. Each balance you erase is one less voice in your head telling you you're behind. Each step forward is one more brick in the foundation of your freedom. And when you're finally free, you don't just breathe easier, you think clearer, you move faster, you take bolder risks, because debt no longer owns your decisions. That's what we're building here. Not just a payoff schedule, but a mental shift, from guilt to grit, from helplessness to ownership. The snowball method works because it meets you where you are, but it doesn't let you stay there. It gives you proof. It gives you control. It gives you permission to believe that the future can be different than the past. And let's be clear, this is not about perfection. It's about progress. It's not about shame. It's about strategy. The only people who stay in debt forever are the ones who believe they're supposed to. But you're rewriting that belief. You're no longer saying, I'll always owe. You're saying, this is temporary. This is changing. And I'm the one changing it. That's the warrior mindset. And warriors don't wait for rescue. They build their own escape. So grab your list. Pick your first target. Feel the fire of one small victory. Because that flame, it will melt the whole mountain. There are two types of people in this world: consumers and investors. One spends for today, the other builds for tomorrow. One seeks instant pleasure, the other seeks lasting growth. And the difference between the two? One simple question. It's not, can I afford this? It's, will this grow my wealth or shrink it? That question, asked consistently, honestly, will change your financial life. Because the consumer mindset is everywhere. It's been trained into you since childhood. Scroll your phone and you're being sold. Drive through a city and you're being sold. Watch TV and you're being told to spend, upgrade, indulge. And if you don't think critically, if you don't stop and ask better questions, you will default to consumption. Because consumption feels good. It's fast, it's emotional, it's rewarding for a moment. But wealth isn't built on feelings. It's built on filters, questions that separate what's urgent from what's important. And the investor mindset? It uses one of the most powerful filters on earth. Will this multiply me or just entertain me? Let me give you a moment from my life that changed everything. I just started making a little more money. Nothing crazy, but more than before. My first thought? Finally, I can go buy that thing I've been wanting. But then I met a man, a mentor, who was wealthy in every sense. Money, time, clarity, peace. And I asked him what made the difference. He said something I'll never forget. Every dollar I earn, I give it a job. Grow or go. If it grows, I keep it. If it just goes, I think twice. That hit me like a punch in the gut. Because I realized I'd been spending like someone trying to look rich, instead of someone trying to become rich. And that's a dangerous game, because anyone can look rich for a while. All it takes is a credit card and insecurity. But being rich, that takes restraint, vision, thought. It takes a quiet decision every day to delay gratification. Not forever, but until it compounds. And it starts small. Let's say you have $500. You could buy a new phone, you could go out, upgrade your wardrobe, or you could buy a course that teaches you how to build a business. You could invest in a skill that earns you $500 a month. You could launch a service, test a product, build a brand. One fades, the other compounds. And over time, those little decisions add up to two completely different lives. One life lives for approval, the other lives for freedom. And freedom isn't found in purchases, it's found in principles. The principle of asking, does this teach me something? Does this connect me to someone? Does this open a door to long-term return? If yes, it's an investment. If not, it's entertainment. And again, I'm not saying you should never enjoy life. But I am saying this. Enjoyment should never come at the cost of your future. The investor mindset doesn't say, never spend. It says, spend intentionally. Let's break it down with a few practical examples. $4 coffee every day. That's $120 a month. Could be a stock investment. $70 eating out every weekend. That's $280 a month. Could be seed capital for your first business. $200 sneakers. That's fine. But do you have $200 in assets first? The wealthy ask these questions because they understand something most people miss. Every dollar is a decision, and every decision shapes your destiny. They don't just buy what looks good, they buy what does good for their future, their family, their freedom. And here's the key shift. Stop seeing money as something you use to feel better. Start seeing it as something you use to become better. That's the mindset that transforms an average income into an extraordinary life. Because it's not about how much you make, it's about how you think with what you have. I've met people making $30,000 who save and invest wisely, and people making $300,000 who are drowning in debt. The difference isn't income. The difference is intention. So here's your challenge. For the next 30 days, every time you reach for your wallet or hover over the Buy Now button, pause Ask, is this building me or billing me? And if you do that enough times, you'll train your brain to move from consumption to creation, from impulse to intention, from looking rich to actually becoming rich. Because wealth doesn't start with money, it starts with mindset. And the mindset that asks better questions always gets better answers. Opportunity doesn't shout. It doesn't send a calendar invite. It doesn't wait around until you're ready. It shows up quietly and then moves on to the next person who is. That's why most people miss their big break. Not because they weren't smart, not because they didn't want it, but because when the moment arrived, they weren't prepared. The wealthy understand something crucial. Wealth is not just about earning more. It's about being positioned to say yes when the right moment appears. And to say yes, you need liquidity. You need what I call the opportunity fund. This isn't your emergency fund. That's for flat tires, medical bills, broken appliances. This is different. This is your yes fund, your wealth accelerator, your permission slip to move when others freeze. Let me explain. I remember a time in my early 20s. A friend came to me with a business idea. It was smart, lean, scalable. He needed a small chunk of capital to kick it off, and I wanted in. I could see the potential. I trusted the person. Everything inside me said, this is it. But I didn't have the cash. I had savings, but it was already spoken for. Bills, rent, wants, future travel. I had no liquid leverage. And just like that, the door closed. He went ahead with someone else. And that business, it took off. I watched it grow from the outside, not because I lacked the vision, but because I lacked the preparation. That was the moment I swore, never again. Never again would I be the one with the right instinct and the wrong position. So I started building an opportunity fund. Slow, simple, quiet. $10 here, $20 there. A little from every freelance gig, a cut from every bonus, an automatic draft from every paycheck. I treated that account like sacred ground, not for shoes, not for dinners, not even for birthdays, only for opportunity. Because one day, that door would open again. And when it did, I wasn't going to knock, I was going to walk through. That's what I want for you. You don't need to start with a lot. You just need to start. Open a separate account. Label it something powerful. Opportunity Fund Wealth Engine. My Yes account. Future freedom. Then, set a rule. No touching it unless it's going to grow you. You'll be tempted. A new phone will come out. A sale will pop up. Your ego will whisper, just this once, but you'll resist. Because that fund isn't about today's impulse. It's about tomorrow's impact. It's for that undervalued stock you researched, that coaching program you've dreamed of, that seed capital for your first product launch, that real estate deal you never thought you could afford until now. It's not just money, it's your readiness reserve. Because the truth is, the world is full of opportunity if you're in position. And here's what happens when you build that fund. You start looking at life differently. You become alert. Your mindset shifts from, I can't afford that, to, is this the opportunity I've been saving for? And that subtle shift, it changes your entire posture. You become strategic, focused, ready. That's what separates the average from the exceptional. Not luck, but liquidity. Not desire, but discipline. And let's be clear, you won't always use that fund immediately. Sometimes it will sit for months, but the act of building it shapes you. It proves that you're not just dreaming about wealth, you're preparing for it. That preparation builds confidence. That confidence creates decisiveness. And that decisiveness, that's what wealth respects. Because when others are hesitating, you'll be deploying, not reacting, not scrambling, executing. And when you do, When you finally say yes to that big moment, you won't just feel lucky, you'll feel ready, because you didn't wait for wealth to show up. You made room for it. So start today. Open the account. Name it. Commit to it. Fund it every week, no matter how small. Because one day, someone will come to you with an idea, a chance, a door, and you'll smile, calmly, confidently, and say, "Yes, I've been ready." Money is a language, and like any language, if you don't speak it, it controls you. Think about that. Most people spend their entire lives earning money, spending money, needing money, but never learning how money actually works. It's like living in a foreign country and never bothering to learn the native tongue. You get by, you guess, you point, you nod, but you never move with confidence. You're always reacting, always behind. That's how most people live financially, just getting by, hoping it works out. But the wealthy, they learn the language, they study it, they speak it fluently, they use it with intention, because they know that money isn't just earned, it's understood. And that understanding, that's power. Here's what I learned early on. If you're not investing time in learning about money, you're already paying for that ignorance. Every single day. You're paying in missed opportunities, bad decisions, emotional spending, unnecessary stress. And it doesn't have to be that way. You don't need a finance degree. You don't need to be a stock market genius. You just need to start learning, consistently. Start with one book a month. That's it, just one. You'll be shocked at how fast your understanding compounds. That's right. Knowledge compounds just like money. Every principle you learn builds on the last. Every insight sharpens your thinking. And the sharper your thinking, the smarter your choices. And smarter choices, they build wealth. When I started my journey, I picked up a classic, The Richest Man in Babylon. It was old school, simple, parables and principles, but it changed me. Not because of flashy tactics, but because it taught me discipline. Then came Think and Grow Rich, The Millionaire Fastlane. I Will Teach You to Be Rich. Books that didn't just give me strategies, they gave me identity. They challenged how I saw time, effort, risk, and reward. And every book became a mirror, a blueprint, a mentor. That's the key. When you read, you're not just absorbing information, you're upgrading your inner operating system. You're reprogramming years of bad money beliefs. You're replacing phrases like, "Money is complicated. I'll figure it out later. It's not my strength," with, "Money is a skill, and I'm building it. I control my finances with clarity. My money habits shape my future." And here's what most people get wrong. They wait to learn later, when they have more time, more money, more success. But it doesn't work like that. You don't wait until you're rich to study money. You study money to become rich. And you don't need hours a day, just 20 minutes. 20 minutes of focused reading daily is enough to finish a full financial book every month. And over time, that's 12 new perspectives a year, 12 shifts in thinking, 12 chances to change the trajectory of your life. And don't just read, reflect, apply, repeat, take notes, highlight phrases, write down key takeaways. Ask yourself, how does this apply to my current financial situation? What habit do I need to build or break? What one thing can I implement today? Because knowledge without action is wasted fuel. If you read about investing, open a simple account, put in $50, get started. If you read about budgeting, download a free app. Track your last 30 days. If you read about saving, automate $10 a week into a separate fund. Action makes the knowledge real, and reality creates results. Now let me give you something even deeper. When you commit to learning about money, something shifts emotionally. Your fear goes down, Your confidence goes up, your decisions get sharper, and that mental peace, that clarity, it's priceless. You stop guessing, you stop gambling, you start moving with purpose. You start seeing opportunities that used to scare you, and now they excite you, because you understand them, because you're fluent. And when you become fluent in money, you're no longer a pawn in the system. You're a player, a builder, an architect of your own economy. So if you're not sure where to start simple. Grab The Richest Man in Babylon, or Think and Grow Rich, or The Psychology of Money. Don't overthink it, just start. Set a timer for 20 minutes a day. No distractions, no scrolling, just learning. And in 30 days, you won't just be more informed, you'll be more powerful, because the wealthiest people in the world don't just work hard, they think clearly, they speak with strategy, and they learn on purpose. So make learning about money a non-negotiable. Every day, every week, every month. Because when you master the language of money, money starts listening. Here's one truth about money that will never change. You are paid in direct proportion to the value you bring to the marketplace. Not to how long you've worked, not to how hard you try, not even to how smart you are. Value. That's the currency. And the good news? Value can be built. It's not something you're born with. It's not locked into your degree, your upbringing, or your connections. It's a skill set. And like any skill set, you can grow it. You see, most people are trying to increase their income by asking for more. Raise, promotion, overtime, all valid, but they're chasing the effect, not the cause. If you want to earn more, you need to become more. That's not just a motivational phrase, it's a formula, and the wealthy follow it religiously. They don't sit around hoping the economy lifts their paycheck. They get to work expanding their value stack, year after year, because value isn't static, it evolves. And if you want your income to evolve, you've got to upgrade your skill set. Let me break it down. There are certain skills that multiply wealth. Not just in theory, in every industry, at every income level. Here are just a few. Communication, the ability to speak, write, and persuade. Whether you're selling a product, a pitch, or yourself, this skill pays in every arena. Sales. Don't be afraid of the word. Selling isn't pushing, it's solving. If you can solve problems and offer solutions, you'll never be broke. Marketing. Knowing how to position an idea, build attention, and generate interest. Marketing multiplies effort. It turns whispers into waves. Leadership. The ability to lead a team, manage vision, and inspire execution. Organizations pay a premium for leadership because leadership is leverage. Tech and systems, from automation to data to AI. Understanding how tools work is the modern multiplier. Tech doesn't replace you, it scales you. Now you might say, but I'm not good at any of that. Good. That means you have room to grow. And growth is where the money is. Here's a challenge. Every year, pick one high-value skill and commit to mastering it. Not just dabbling, mastering. That means practice, representatives, mentorship, courses, feedback. That means showing up, even when it's uncomfortable. Because here's the hidden cost of staying in your comfort zone. You become replaceable. And the market doesn't reward replaceable. The market rewards rare. It rewards courage. It rewards capability. When I started my own journey, I was terrified of public speaking. But I knew, deep down, that if I wanted to lead, teach, and inspire, I had to master the message. So I did. Toastmasters, online trainings, practice sessions in front of a mirror. I stumbled, sweated, failed, but I kept going. And eventually, that one skill, public speaking, opened doors I never imagined. Stage invitations, consulting gigs, high-ticket clients, leadership opportunities. Why? Because I didn't wait to be chosen. I chose to become someone valuable. That's the game. And that's what the wealthy do. They don't pray for opportunity, they prepare for it by being too skilled to ignore. And here's something else. Value doesn't just come from skills. It comes from adaptability. The world changes fast. What worked 5 years ago might not work next year. If you're not learning, you're lagging. If you're not stretching, you're shrinking. So ask yourself, what skill would multiply my earning potential? What does the market pay a premium for? Where do I feel uncomfortable? And how can I train through that discomfort? Because that space, the one you're avoiding, is usually the exact place your income wants to grow. Another tip? Invest in your learning. Buy the course, attend the workshop, hire the coach. Don't see it as spending. See it as stacking value. Because the return on a new skill doesn't end in one paycheck. It compounds over time, over clients, over offers. And here's the beauty of it all. When you focus on building value, you stop chasing money. Money starts chasing you. Clients call you, employers notice you, opportunities find you. Why? Because the market is always watching, and the minute you become too good to ignore, you become impossible to underpay. So stop asking for permission and start building power, skill by skill, stack by stack, year by year. Your value is your economy, and when you grow it deliberately, your income won't just rise, it will rise with you. Wealth doesn't show up in a windfall. It shows up in a rhythm. Not in luck, not in lottery, but in daily action that compounds over time. That's the secret most people miss. They're looking for a breakthrough, but what they actually need is a blueprint. You see, habits aren't just routines, they're assets in disguise. Every day you're building something. The only question is, are you building convenience or are you building cash flow? Because every action repeated over time creates a trajectory. You either rise toward wealth or drift toward stagnation. And here's the most exciting part. The things you're already doing, right now, can be turned into streams of income. It starts with identifying your value-creating habits. Ask yourself, what do I do consistently that others find valuable? What knowledge, skill, or process do I repeat every day? What insight do I take for granted that others would pay for? Then ask, how do I turn this into something I can share, sell, or scale? Let's take an example. Maybe you journal every morning about personal growth or mindset. That's a habit. Now, document it, refine it, turn it into a blog, turn it into a newsletter, turn it into content, and over time, that consistent value builds an audience. That audience builds trust, and trust becomes the gateway to affiliate income, digital products, coaching courses, partnerships, all from a habit you were already doing. Or maybe you're learning a new skill, digital marketing, design, public speaking. Turn your learning journey into teaching moments. What you're learning today can help someone who's one step behind you tomorrow, and that makes you valuable. That makes you a guide. And guides get paid. Another example? Let's say you post a piece of value-driven content every day on social media. That habit, if done consistently and intentionally, can lead to brand deals, service offers, community monetization, consulting. You're not just sharing thoughts, you're building an income engine, and you're doing it one action at a time. Here's the shift in mindset. Stop thinking in terms of effort. Start thinking in terms of assets. Effort is what you do once. Assets are what keep working after you do. And habits are the bridge. They're the code that converts sweat into scale. But, and this is important, it only works if you're consistent. Because income streams don't appear from random action. They appear from repeated excellence. from repetition with refinement, from showing up even when results aren't immediate. Because you're not just building money, you're building equity in yourself. Let's get practical. Step 1. Pick one high-value habit, something that creates or delivers value daily. Maybe it's teaching, writing, networking, content creation, skill-building, product development. Step 2. Document the process. Keep a record. Build structure, refine your delivery. Step 3. Look for platforms to leverage what you've created. A blog or YouTube channel, a TikTok or Instagram account, a Gumroad page for digital downloads, a newsletter or membership site. Remember, at first you're building consistency, not cash. But over time, the consistency builds credibility, and credibility becomes cash flow. That's how habits become income. And let me tell you something most people never hear. You don't need to monetize everything, but you should structure your life so that everything can be monetized. That's the difference between a hustle and a system. Hustle is frantic. It burns out. It depends on constant push. But systems, they stabilize, they scale, they make your work work without you always being present. And here's the kicker. The people who build wealth don't have more time. They just use their time more intentionally. They stack habits that have downstream effects. They build once, benefit often. They plant seeds daily and let the forest grow. Let's wrap this in a mindset. You are not paid for how busy you are. You are paid for the value your habits create and the systems you build around them. So take a look at your daily routine. Where is the habit that can become a product? Where is the insight that can become a service? Where is the repetition that can become revenue? Because the more you automate value, the less you chase money, and the more money starts chasing you. This is how you go from earning linearly to earning exponentially, from depending on effort to depending on infrastructure. So here's the challenge. Start building the habits that become income streams. Document them, improve them, monetize them, because one day you'll look back and realize that your freedom wasn't created by a single decision, but by a daily commitment to build something that could outlive your energy. And that's the moment your habits stop costing you time and start buying you freedom. Everyone wants to be wealthy, but want means nothing without when. You've probably said it before. I want to save more. I want to start that business. I want to be financially free. And yet, weeks pass, months pass, years. Why? Because without a deadline, a goal is just a wish. It floats, it drifts, it gives you a false sense of progress because you said it out loud. But saying isn't doing, and the wealthy know this. That's why they treat deadlines like oxygen. Let me be clear. Clarity without urgency is procrastination disguised as planning. If you want to change your financial life, you need to start adding time pressure to your intention. That means saying, I will save $5,000 by December 1st. I will earn $1,000 a month in side income by October. I will launch my first offer within the next 30 days. Specific, measurable, time-bound. This isn't about pressure, it's about focus. Because a deadline cuts through distraction. It eliminates the fluff. It forces decisions, action, momentum. I learned this early. When I first got serious about money, I made a goal. I want to pay off my debt. But guess what? Nothing happened. Because want is passive. It wasn't until I said, I will pay off $3,000 in 90 days by cutting expenses, increasing income, and tracking every week, that things started to move. And here's what I found. Every time I attached a deadline to my vision, my brain went to work, not in panic, but in problem-solving mode. Suddenly I was asking better questions. How do I hit this number? What can I cut this week? What side hustle can I start by Friday? Who can I reach out to right now? The deadline shifted me from dreaming to building. And every step forward, even the small ones, created clarity and confidence, because that's what deadlines do. They create data. You can track, adjust, measure. You're no longer guessing, you're guiding. You don't just hope for growth, you manage it. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you set a clear financial goal with a specific deadline and tracked it weekly? If your answer is never or a long time ago, then don't be surprised if your results feel fuzzy. You're not failing, you're floating. And floating doesn't lead to freedom. Structure does. Let's break it down. Here's how to set wealth-building goals that actually move the needle. 1. Get specific. I want to save more becomes, I will save $500 in the next 30 days. 2. Pick the deadline. Put it on your calendar. Treat it like a bill. A goal without a date is just stress in disguise. 3. Reverse engineer it. Break it into weeks. $500 in 30 days equals approximately $125 per week. Now you know your pace. Now you can evaluate in real time. 4. Measure weekly, not just results. Effort. What did you try? What worked? What didn't? 5. Adjust without judgment. If you fall behind, don't quit. Recalibrate. Goals aren't about perfection. They're about progress under pressure. And here's the beautiful truth. Deadlines don't just move you faster, they make you better. They reveal your blind spots, force prioritization, and, most importantly, turn time into a tool, not a trap. Because time will either work for you or against you. Let me tell you something the wealthy understand. They don't just track dollars, they track decisions per day. They don't just set goals, they schedule them. They don't wait for the future. They engineer it, one deadline at a time. So if you're feeling stuck, if your goals feel distant or blurry, here's your next move. Pick one financial target, attach a real deadline, then ask, what's my first step? What does success look like by the end of this week? How will I track and adjust without self-sabotage? And if you commit to that process, if you stop treating time like a luxury and start treating it like leverage, everything will shift. Because wealth doesn't come to the one who plans to someday. It comes to the one who says, by this date, I will. Here's how. And here's what I'll do today to prove it. So don't just want more, want it with a timestamp, because the clock is already ticking. The question is, will you let time pass, or will you use it to press forward? You've made it to the end. But this isn't the end of a video. It's the end of an illusion. The illusion that wealth is just for the lucky, just for the chosen, just for someone else. Because now, you know better. You've seen that wealth isn't just about money. It's about clarity, discipline, language, structure, and most of all, identity. It's about becoming the kind of person who doesn't wait to be rescued, but learns to rescue themselves. So let's pause here. Let's remember what you've just uncovered. You don't just need more income. You need to ask better questions. You don't just need more effort. You need aligned action. You don't just need more knowledge. You need to apply what you already know, on purpose. And you've seen it now. That language shapes destiny. That excuses cost you power. That debt can be melted, one payment at a time. That value is something you can build. That habits can become assets. That clarity without deadlines is just a dream in disguise. You've seen that wealth isn't something you chase blindly. It's something you attract when you're ready. So the final question is simple. Are you ready to lead yourself? Not just when it's convenient, but especially when it's inconvenient. Because leadership is lonely, ownership is uncomfortable, discipline is demanding. But they are also the price of freedom. And freedom, It's worth it. So what do you do next? You act, you decide, you draw a line in the sand and say, from this moment forward, I move with intention. You stop asking the world for permission to build wealth, and you start designing it. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Start by tracking $1, reading one chapter, setting one deadline, replacing one excuse, making one uncomfortable decision that moves you forward. Because wealth doesn't wait for the perfect plan, it rewards those who move in faith and figure it out along the way. So here's your call. Don't just watch this video and feel inspired. Do something about it, bookmark it, share it with someone who needs it. Come back when you start to drift. Use it as a compass when you forget who you're becoming. Because this isn't content. This is a challenge. And you're not just a consumer anymore. You're a builder, a strategist, a leader. And wealth? Wealth follows those who lead themselves. So go build, go track, go speak power, go act with vision. And when opportunity knocks, you won't be surprised. You'll be smiling, because you were already ready.